Hello, welcome to tonight, and just in the spirit of Easter, just getting a little bit festive here. So if anybody else has got festive things they want to put on, you feel free. So tonight it's going to be a little bit moving around a little bit. We've got Irene making the hot cross buns, her special ones, and she'll tell you how she's going to pronounce her. She's just been practicing the pronunciation, so she should be perfect now. We've got Pearl showing you some eggs, and I'm doing some chocolate. So it's very easy, very simple, and just 3 things tonight. Okay, great. Okay. I'm just going to make sure people are muted. Should be muted when they come in now. Anyway, all right. So before we start, though, I just want to make sure that you're all aware that starting from midday today through till the 12th of May, we have a second bowl and blade set as part of the host rewards. So anyone who has a cooking experience and they have a guest there, so think about your guests, who purchases a Thermomix, you can actually get a second bowl and blade set for $110. Now that is a really, really good deal. So you might ask, well, why do I want a second bowl and blade set? So I'm sure there are some of you here, in fact, I know that definitely of one person here who has 2 bowls. I would love a couple of little comments in the chat about why you'd like a second bowl and blade. All right, I know why I need it, because I forget things and I'm in the middle of a recipe and suddenly I've got to make rice flour, I've got to do almond meal, and I don't want to tip everything out and then make it. So out comes a second bowl, and I love it for that reason. But if anybody else has got some really great reasons why they love it, please pop in the chat and we'll have a look at those at some point. All right, apart from that, of course, as always, we'd love you to join our team. So if anyone's feeling inspired and wants to be part of what we do, then please, contact your consultant and we'll go from there. All right, so moving on now, we are going to go over to the wonderful Irene, and she is going to pronounce the buns. Vicky, talk to me about bowls and blades later.
Hi, everyone. I've got my little Easter bunny. He's getting ready to come out. I think everyone got excited when they heard I was making hot cross buns, because I get to eat them in the office tomorrow. So exciting. Okay, so tongue. Oh, I just realised. Is my camera back to front, guys?
Oh, that's good. It's good.
Oh, it's looking back to front from here. Anyway, never mind. If it's back to front, sorry about that. It's pronounced Tangzhong. So essentially, I have provided Mandy a little cheat sheet, which we'll send through to everyone that's registered tonight. You can also contact your consultant. We'll get this around to all the consultants so they can send this through. But essentially, this method involves cooking out some of the flour and the water. And what that does is it actually extends the shelf life of your bread, and it actually keeps it really soft and squishy. So to show you that, I actually made these on Tuesday. So they're a couple of days old, and you'll see how squashy, and they come back and they actually bounce back in terms of shape. So you can see that, and they spring back. And that's essentially what the Tangzhong, sorry, Boone, if I'm not pronouncing it right, I feel like I'm pronouncing it wrong. Tangzhong, I think she said that was right. So that's why we want to use this method. So it's not just for the hot cross buns. I like it for the hot cross buns because I find when you're making a big batch, by the day when you get to the next day, you can usually bounce them and they'll bounce off the floor and off the walls because they're so hard and dry. So if you're getting dinner rolls, you're doing the hot cross buns, works really well for cinnamon buns, whatever you want to in terms of extending shelf life, you want to do that. So I want to bake these. I've actually done some earlier tonight. I've just got them proofing, but I'll get them out so we can get these baking. Let me turn this oven on.
yours plain, Irene, or have you got fruit in them?
I'm going to make some fruit ones, so we'll do some fruit ones together. These ones are plain, so you can see how gorgeous they've come up. They've puffed up beautifully. This is one batch of dough. This tin's quite big, actually. I reckon it's about 28 or 30 centimeters wide. So it's quite a really good mixture. And I've weighed those out at about 66. That sounds really strange, but I've weighed the whole batch of dough, divided it evenly into the 16 pieces. And that's a standard size hot cross bun. So just gives you an idea that one batch is plenty. Now I'm using the hot cross bun recipe straight from the Everyday Cookbook, and I've modified it. In that recipe, it's got a recipe for making your piping mixture to do our crosses, which I'll do in a moment, to get these in the oven. And it's also got a recipe for doing the syrup that you can pop over the top. I'm just using maple syrup. I'm just going to brush that on, but you can certainly make any sort of sugar syrup. You can even use honey watered down. You could do the same with some jam, maybe some apricot jam, and water that down a little bit to do that. So excuse the camera, I'm just going to come down. Now we've got some new squeezy bottles on our mix shop. This is one that I've got, but you can certainly get a squeezy bottle pretty much anywhere. But it makes the job so much easier. So I'm just going to go all the way across. Oh, someone's dog's excited about hot cross buns. And the other way. Now I have lined this with paper because I want to have lovely smooth, or not dry finish on the bottom. I don't want a crust. And you can see the squeezy bottle makes this really easy. You can certainly use a piping bag. Okay. So my oven needs a few more minutes to get ready, but I'm going to pop those in as soon as the oven's ready. But let's talk about my recipe. So again, we're going to send this sheet out, but I want to explain the a little bit too late. The Tangzhong, sorry, Boone. I don't want to offend anyone. Okay, so in terms of the recipe, this is what it looks like. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking roughly 10% of the flour in your recipe. So in my case, the recipe calls for 500 grams of flour. So I've used 50 grams of flour. So you're using 10% to 5 times the amount in a liquid that's in the recipe. So this recipe calls for 250 grams of milk. So I've used essentially 250 grams of milk to 50 grams of flour, and I've cooked that. So you're going to write this down. I've cooked that for literally three minutes on speed 4. Now, this is like the custard, so it's the same consistency. It will also create a skin if you don't cover it. So make the mixture. You saw I had that cling film patted right down so I don't get a skin on that mixture. And you can refrigerate this for up to 3 days. Now, what I've done is I've made this tonight, and I've literally let it come back to room temperature.
Irene, just 1 second. What was it? So cook for 3 minutes on...
3 minutes, speed 4, 100 degrees. Sorry, boiling. Yep, 100 degrees, 3 minutes, speed 4. You'll get what resembles a really thick custard. So allow that to cool down. If you add that too quickly, obviously you can kill the yeast. So remember, we've talked about this before. You don't want to have your temperature of your yeast too hot, otherwise you'll kill the yeast, and it obviously won't do what these have done. So that's a 1 to 5 ratio. So look at your recipe. This was 500 grams of flour, so it's 50 grams of flour to 250 grams of water. The other thing that you will read in here is talks about hydration. So what happens is the flour that's absorbed all of that liquid, it doesn't actually release back into the recipe. So any recipe where you're converting and using the Tangzhong, you have to increase your recipe's hydration to 75%. Now, in simple terms, if we're using 500 grams of flour, 75% equals 375 grams of water. So in my case, instead of using 500 grams of flour and 250 grams of the milk, which is what the recipe calls for, I've increased that, and I'm going to say 375, but I've actually increased it to 350. So my recipe, I've increased it by 100 grams of milk. Okay, so I've got 100 grams of milk in my little bowl here. I've used that 250 grams with my 50 grams of flour in here. I therefore have 450 grams of flour left. Everything else in your recipe is exactly the same, so I'm not confusing you. Now, when you read this sheet, you'll understand why have I not used 375 grams. In the back of the sheet, I've written that milk contains 87% water, large eggs contain 74% water, liquid sweeteners, so if you're using honey, that contains 17% water, things like butter, they all contain water. So I've actually done the maths for you to make it easier. So essentially when I've added up my egg, I weighed my egg, it was one of the 800 gram pack eggs, 74% water. That's actually giving me 50 grams of water already. My butter's got about 20% water in it, and my full cream milk actually has fat in it, so it's not 100% liquid. So I've done the maths, and it's basically 100 grams extra of milk. More than happy to help you convert other recipes for this Tangzhong method, but I promise when you read the sheet, it's referring to a website called King Arthur Baking. When you read it, it's really simple. You'll understand the mathematics behind it, but more than happy to help you. Now, there are lots of Tangzhong recipes that people have already done the work for. So they've got dinner rolls already converted, they've got cinnamon buns converted, they've done chocolate hot cross buns, they've done these fruit buns, etc. So for this recipe, you're simply increasing by having an extra 100 grams of milk. That's all you need to think about with this one. And obviously make your Tangzhong. Remember, that can stay in the fridge for up to 3 days. Allow that to come back to room temperature before you use it. Okay, so let's start the recipe. So the recipe calls for zesting some lemon. I've got the peel of half of a lemon in here. And to zest that, you need to use something from within your recipe. I'm just going to use, it actually says for you to use at 100 grams of baker's flour. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just taking some of the flour from my recipe. If your recipe didn't have flour in it, maybe it had sugar, you could use the sugar to do this. So it's really, rather than zesting it with a zester. So this is a really quick way to do that. And it doesn't take very long at all. 10 seconds, speed 9. So my buns have gone in. I think it says to cook them at about 200 degrees. That's a little bit too hot in my oven. They brown too quickly. So I've dropped that back to 180. Okay. What you'll see is no zest or lime peel left. It's all been condensed into powder. So I've basically made lemon flour. I wonder what I can do with lemon flour. Okay, the next step asks you to add your 250 grams of milk. Remember, we're talking through the recipe, and it's asking you to add your yeast. So I've only got 100. Now it's asking for 40 grams of fresh yeast. Don't use 40 grams of dried yeast like I did in these, and they're I can't eat them. I obviously didn't read the recipe. I was in a rush that night on Tuesday. So basically, remember we talked about yeast. If you're using fresh yeast, you need to activate it, which is why it's asking you to do that. With the dried yeast, we don't have to do that, but I'm going to do that anyway because I want to bring there's nothing warm. Remember, I normally add tepid water to give me a little bit of warmth. There's no warmth in any of this. So I'm actually going to do this step, and it's obviously half. So with dried yeast, it's 20 grams rather than 40. I think the recipe actually asks for a tablespoon. When you weigh it, it's roughly 16, 17 grams. Close enough. Yeah. Okay. So this is going to heat for 3 minutes. So if we want to jump over to someone for a few minutes.
Okay, come back to me. I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of something with chocolate. And Boom will tell you we get through a lot of chocolate in our house because she has to go and buy it for me from Aldi because I don't have a membership.
Costco, you mean?
Costco. Yes. This is the chocolate, and I've got a whole lot of notes to send you too when we follow up about chocolate and the ways to temper chocolate and a few things that you actually find on your Thermomix on cookie dough as well. But that is the chocolate I'm using, and Boone thinks we get through lots of it, but I had to get 2 bags to practice. So I don't even know how, is it Calabo? I don't know how you pronounce that. Someone else could. We've got problems with pronunciations tonight. Anyway,
it's Calabo.
Sorry, what?
It's Calabo.
Calabo. Okay, so that is the chocolate, and I get that because I know it's a good quality chocolate. But also there is a very old book called "I Love Chocolate, I Love Thermomix," and so a lot of the notes and things that I'm going to send you come from that. And this is the type of chocolate that the lady in there uses and recommends.
So that's Belgian chocolate. So it's not as sweet as, say, your Lindt. So if you don't like your chocolate too sweet, get the Belgian, which is the Calabo, which I love, by the way, Mandy.
Good. All right. Glad to hear it. All right. So what I'm actually going to do, there's an Easter egg recipe on cookie dough, but I'm not actually going to use that because there was some little notes, as I said, on cookie dough as well about your chocolate. There's 2 ways that you can deal with chocolate. You can either melt it, or you can, so there's 2 ways of tempering. So again, sorry, a little bit of theory here, but if it's all written down, so don't worry too much if it all seems a bit too hard. I've got to get my head around all of Irene's quantities too. I'm not an accountant. Anyway, there's 2 ways that you can temper chocolate. There's the seeding method, and that means that you fully melt 75% of the chocolate that you're going to use. And then you add 25% of the other 25% into that melted chocolate and just stir with no heat. And that's to get it at the right temperature. All right, that's the seeding method. Or there's the partial melting method where you put the whole amount of chocolate in at once, but you only melt it till about 60% of it is melted. And then you just stir. So it's all about getting the right temperature for the chocolate. And there are recipes on cookie dough where it will just do, it will heat it either to 37 degrees or 50 degrees, and then it will get you to stir. All right, I'm going to start mine in just a minute, but I just wanted to explain that there are 2 ways to do it. And the reason that you do that is to get a better gloss on your chocolate. And also, I don't know if you've ever done this, and I definitely have, melted chocolate and try to use it in something and it's been soft. So when you do it properly, you get that snap that you'll get with chocolate. All right. Number 1 absolute golden rule is make sure you have a super dry bowl. And can somebody put in the chat a little tip? Anyone? My customers should know this. My favorite function on the TM6, well, on any of the Thermomixes. What's a great way to make sure your bowl's really dry? Yes, Robin, go you. Turbo. So you wash, you dry your bowl, you put turbo on, and then any other liquid, tiny little bits that you don't even know are there that might be hanging around the blades will flick off onto the side of your bowl and you dry it out. Okay, so turbo is fantastic for that. Now, I haven't used my bowl since this morning, and I dried it and it's been sitting here, so I'm sure it's absolutely fine. But that is the way, you know, if you're moving from one thing to another, or get a second bowl. Another reason for a second bowl. Okay, so I've got a lot more information on there, but that is the basics of getting your chocolate so that it's going to work really well with what you're making. And Irene, you let me know if we need to come back to you.
Yes, please, I'm ready.
Okay.
Don't have to ask me twice. Okay, so we've gone through, we've warmed our milk with our yeast. Okay, the next step is actually asking for everything else to go back in. So we're adding the tangzhong now. So really important to let this come back to room temperature. Remember, we're trying to keep temperatures. We obviously don't want it to be too, we don't want it to be hot, but we also don't want it to be cold. In goes my flour. So this is the balance, the 450. You know, I might have dropped 10 grams off the side. Okay, it's asking for my salt. That was in with my flour. Now the butter, I hold off the butter and I'll explain that later. So in with my, oh yeah, my sugar. My sugar's in here along with my spices. So I've got my cinnamon, my nutmeg and my clove. It's asking for my egg, my spices. So I've got all those ready to go. Okay, lid goes on. Now, this next step is asking to bring that together for 6 seconds, followed by scraping down the sides and then adding the fruit. I don't do that. So skip past all of this, the sultanas, the currants. Remember that I haven't added my butter. It is been sitting in the fridge, so my butter's here, ready to go. I'm jumping all the way through to the kneading process. So this kneading process is set for 2 minutes. I'm going to set that for 4 minutes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to knead for 4 minutes, and then in the last 4 minutes, I'm going to add my butter little by little. So in the first 4 minutes, I'm actually developing the gluten in that flour. So if you've gone through our classes before, I talk about that stretch, that window test. Now I'm able to achieve that in that 4 minutes. In the next 4 minutes, I want to use that 4 minutes to incorporate the butter. You don't throw it all in at once. You drop in a piece at a time, maybe every 30 seconds, roughly, to get that 70 grams in. And the reason you want to do that last is if you pour the butter in too early, it inhibits the rise of the dough. So it takes longer for the dough to rise and you get a tighter crumb. You'll see how beautifully fluffy my hot cross buns are when I pull them out of there, and that's because I've allowed the gluten to develop first. I'm doing the butter last so that I'm not encasing that gluten and giving it as much possibility to stretch. You'll promise you'll love this method, and you'll get amazing results. So I'm going to do all of that. If you guys want to head over back to whoever's doing that, I'm going to mute. So
thanks, Boo. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to weigh in the chocolate. I've actually weighed my chocolate. So it is these little buttons like this. I'm using the method that's actually on Cookie Dough, but just written in a, I'll show you where to find it. All right. And I will be sending this out in the notes as well. So basically it wants me to have 220 grams of chocolate. Let's see that. Bit of a glare. So I have actually weighed that out. I'm going to put that in. Now, some of the recipes will then ask you to blitz it up so it's very small. And I've done a few things this week just trying it out. And this one doesn't ask you to do that. It's a little bit noisy for the first couple of, well, first minute, I guess, and then it gets less noisy. If you are using one of the other ones, there's an Easter egg recipe, and I will show you all this in a minute on Cookie Dough. it got to almost towards the end of what, well, it was at the end of the first section, and it looked like there was a huge chunk that just had not melted at all. And I thought, you know, what is going on here? But then you just got to scrape down the sides and you put it on again, and it all melted in the time. So you just got to be a little bit patient and believe in the process. All right. So I'm gonna I will put this on. I'm going to melt it for 3 minutes on 50 degrees, speed 3. It says or until melted. So I will check it at that 3 minute mark and just check and see if it's melted. And then I'm going to add another 80 grams of chocolate, and I'm going to, it's going to stir for 2 minutes. All right. So that's that seeding method where I'm putting some in and then I'm adding some more further on, and then just stirring, not heating. Okay. So I'm going to pop this on. Now, does it say with MC? Yeah, MC on. I can find it. There it is. And we might actually, Boone, go over to Pearl whilst this is happening, please.
Oh gosh, my dogs have started singing. Okay, today I'm going to make Easter eggs or dyed eggs. So I've dyed some before. Actually, we make eggs because eggs means life, and Easter is a source of hope and life where Jesus is born. So I've done these the organic way or with the onion peels. So see how dark it's become. And I've used the netting of the vegetables that you get. That's why we've got those holes there. Then I've done this one with the food coloring. And I've also used the vegetable bag, the avocado bag. So you've got those there. This one I've just put rubber bands on, and then I just colored it, the part which was not colored. So this 3 I've done. And I'll show you all that I'm making one now here. So I've got this bag, which is an avocado bag. I've put a piece of leaf. You can see the leaf here. And this egg has been covered with I took a cloth, dipped it in vinegar, and I wiped the eggshell with it. So that by doing that, my eggshell becomes rough and it will absorb the color. So I've got green food color. Don't know if you can see here. I'm just going to dip it in for some time, and then I'll show you all later how this egg turns out to be. So I'll just take this, keep it in the glass for a few minutes, and put the color on top of it, and it should absorb the color. So that's a very easy thing. See, you can already see it getting green. I'll show you the end result soon. So it's a very easy way, whether it is dyed egg or an Easter egg that we do it in our thing. All eggs give you hope. That's what it means. So see how nice it looks, and it's very easy. So it's a good thing to do with your kids at home. So that's all. I'll show it to you later. So Boone, if you can get Mandy or Irene.
All right, come back to me. I just want to make sure that you can hear me though. Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Yep, okay, cool. All right, so my chocolate, it was a little bit noisy to begin with, and now it's gone quiet. I've got 41 seconds left to go, and then I'm going to add another 80 grams of chocolate, and then it's going to stir for the 2 minutes. All right. And whilst it's doing that, Irene, obviously chime in if you're ready. I'm going to give you a little, I can't go through a whole class and not give you some sustainability tips, okay? So these bags, all right, they are soft plastic. They can be recycled at the supermarket. However, you need to cut this bit off, which is also soft plastic, and you need to throw away the little metal bit on either end, but the rest of it can be recycled. Okay, right. Managed to get that one in quickly. All right, so now I'm coming back to my chocolate. Now, this still is not all melted, so I'm going to just, you can see that I've got a whole lot up the sides here, so I'm just going to push it down, and I'm going to put it on a bit longer because this bit all needs to be melted if I'm going to add the other in to stir. Okay. So pop that on for a bit longer. It's really just keeping an eye and seeing what, oh, hang on, do there. Put it on for a couple more, but I'll keep an eye on it whilst it's doing it. Up to, doing here. 50, and it was on speed 2. All right. So whilst it's doing that, can you still hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. All right, I'll just move over here a little bit. I'm going to just share my screen and show you where to find some of these recipes. So that's the Tangzhong bread, milk bread. All right, so that's the basis of what Irene's showing you tonight, and obviously we can find hot cross buns. By going to here, we just go, there's actually a whole collection, hot cross bun collection. And I was reading something today. In here, there's a really interesting collection. This is a new collection in Australia. So we go hot cross buns just in here. They've got a mocha eggnog Easter bake using hot cross buns, vegan hot cross buns. Now this one, someone said was absolutely fantastic. And they said, we might think they're a little bit weird, but I know we do this, well, I've always done the same. I quite like, if I'm having a hot cross bun, I quite like a piece of cheese with my hot cross bun. And this is what they're saying, this is really good because you've got your cheese in there, and she didn't put jalapenos, but she said the jalapenos would really lift it as well. So that's just a different one to try. If you've made heaps and heaps of the other sort, well, why not give something else a go? And so it's a savoury one. What else have we got here? Hot cross buns, brioche ones, chocolate hot cross buns, and then gluten-free hot cross buns. So we've got them to, for everybody. The other thing I wanted to show you in here, you can, let me go back. I don't know if you can see, I think I probably saved it. So I've actually saved this whole collection. So you can save whole collections of recipes. And I'm going into my recipes, into saved, and somewhere down here I had Easter time. And these are some more eggs, dyed eggs. So it's a small collection with dyed eggs. And there are 2 ways you can do it. Pearl showed you one way, but some of these, like this one, you have to do exactly like Pearl did, and so you get your pattern. But if you've got a TM6 and you've got the egg boiler mode, you put your colour in whilst the eggs are hard boiling. It says to rub your eggshells with vinegar just to rough them up a little bit, so that actually takes the dye a bit quicker. But there you go. So that's another way of doing it. All right.
Andy,
okay. Yeah.
Can I just interrupt?
Oh yes, you. Yes. Yeah, we'll come back to you. Boone, can you find our?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so they take about 18 minutes. They're ready to go. So I'm going to glaze those when I'm not burning my hands, but very quickly. So I've done that 8-minute knead, and you'll see a really gorgeous glossy dough, which is a great thing. Now I'm going to add the fruit. So remember, what I did is that when it got to that 2-minute kneading stage, I increased that to 8 minutes. So I knead for 4 minutes, and then I use the last 4 to incorporate the butter. My next tip is to soak your fruit. So I literally added boiling water. And the reason I do this is a lot of this fruit, particularly the sultanas and especially the currants, they're super, super dry. And what they do is they actually suck some of the moisture out of your bread. So you'll end up getting, drying out your hot cross buns a lot sooner. So I've simply covered these with boiling water for about half an hour to an hour. And then I drain them really, really well, because I don't want to add too much more liquid, obviously. So I've just drained them, and I've even got some kitchen paper on the bottom. So these have all plumped up. You can feel them, so they're really lovely and plump. So I'm going to incorporate those now in that last, so it's gone back to that 2-minute knead. I'm going to use that process to do the fruit. But to it, I'm also adding, and this is completely optional, of course, some mixed peel. Now this mixed peel is quite wet, so I obviously haven't soaked this, and you don't have to use peel and it's quite soft and tender, so I don't need to do anything with that. And of course, adding the water, I'm going to lose quite a bit of that sugar and from it. So that's going in, and I'm going to knead for another 2 minutes, and then I'll show you the dough. So back to you, Mandy.
All right, so I just put that extra 80 grams of chocolate in, and it's now just stirring with no heat at all. So whilst it's doing that, I'll just show, actually, I will show you where you can find the method that I'm using. So come back onto Cookie Dough. On the front page here, I don't know if you've ever had a look down here, there's so many rabbit holes you can go down. It's got our latest recipes. It's got that savory hot cross buns, but it's got themes. So here we are, say it with chocolate. Read more. It tells you a bit about different types of chocolate, and the darker a chocolate is, the higher the temperature is required to actually melt it. But this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this tempering chocolate down the bottom here, okay? My 220 grams of chocolate, which I've melted, and I've added the 80, and I'm just, when it says temper, it means just stir rather than heat. A few little tips here. Yeah, as I mentioned before, you know, so you can grate your chocolate. Oh yeah, I'm gonna see if anyone else knows how you clean your bowl after you've done chocolate in a minute. All right. Okay, so I'll just show you a couple of things I've done. Oh, hang on, no, we might be ready. Yeah, we're good. All right, so instead of making a chocolate egg, although I have got one here ready to go as well, I'm going to make a chocolate pizza, as in no pizza dough, but I'm going to use the chocolate. See, it's all beautifully melted on there. I'm going to pop it on here, and I'm going to make it into a pizza. It's something I saw at a chocolate factory a little while ago. I thought it was a really clever idea. So I'm going to just spread it out. Now, if you, my team will tell you that I'm not super fussy, all right? So I'm quite happy with the way my chocolate is. There are actually a couple of little bits in there that probably should have melted. But if you want to be really, do it absolutely properly, like Irene probably would, though she tells me she's not a perfectionist, then you can use a thermometer, all right? In the notes I'm sending you to, it tells you what sort of temperature, and if it's not the correct temperature, how you can fix it to get to that temperature too. But in the interest of speed as well, I'm just going to do it this way. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually divide it up. So I might have to do a little bit of trimming afterwards, but I'm putting in, this is just licorice. Okay, so I'm going to put my licorice across here. Oops, it's a little bit curly, my licorice, so it's not quite as straight as I would really like it, but there you go. It's going to break it up like you would see a pizza broken up or cut up. And then really what you put on your pizza is totally up to you. So this is way wigglier than the last one I did, so I just give my hands a bit of a wipe. So I'll show you the other one I did, which has got lots of lollies on it. But I'm going for the healthier version tonight. And I've got some toasted hazelnuts. I'm just going to pop some of those on there whilst it's melted. I have some goji berries. Oops, better go in that one, since I've got some in there already. Okay. What else have I got? I've got some, I'm not going to put that, I'm going to put my pepitas on here. I have some flaked coconut. Oops. Got to work reasonably fast before it sets. What else have I got? I have some more nuts. These are just toasted flaked almonds. So you really need to have all these things ready just to go on there. And lastly, got a husband away and he hates ginger and I love it, so I'm putting ginger on. So I've got ginger on there too. And then obviously what you got to do, you got to wait until it all sets, and that will just take a little bit of time. But there you go. I just think it's just something a little bit different. It's still using chocolate. You can make Easter eggs, you can make Easter bunnies, and I will show you that as well. Not going to make them, but what I've actually made. But I just think that's a really it's an interesting thing. You can make it your own. You decide what you want to go on there. All right, so that's the healthy version. This is one I made the other day. This is full of lollies. So I've got, so they're Smarties, but they're not Smarties. What are they? Anyway, I've got coconut rough. I've got Maltesers. I've got these little eggs. These are mini Rolos, and those are just little marshmallows. So, you know, different ideas. You could do a mixture of, I've got a loose egg here. You know, you could do a mixture of lollies and the other version, the other things as well. So, as I said, totally up to you what you decide to do. Okay. Now, I have made, there are all sorts of molds you can get. My lovely friend over the road, Kelly, oh, you probably can't see these. These are bunnies. So these are big bunnies. So I've got big chocolate bunny there. Got a couple of those. My other ones, I had got a whole lot of little ones somewhere. And the other thing I've done is an egg. So this egg mold I got actually this morning at Chadstone from Matchbox. $6, but it's quite a nice size egg, and you see my chocolate's nice and glossy. And what I'm going to do is pop some lollies in here. So put those Smartie things in there. Okay. And the way that you actually seal it is not by putting chocolate on there, but this is what's suggested on Cookie Dough, is that you put a tray in the oven, which I've done, and that's heating up. And what I'm going to do is sit this on the tray so that this edge of the egg melts, and then I'm going to pop it on here and just hold it there so it sticks together. So I'll just see if my tray is hot enough. I'm going to put it on.
So lowest setting on your oven, Mandy, you don't with your tray. Remember, chocolate melts at about 26 degrees. So you want on the
it's
lowest.
Probably
setting.
too hot then.
Yeah, because it's just going to melt straight away because you want it to melt as quickly as it melts. So just put your tray in the oven, lowest possible setting, get it out. Yeah, it can't be too hot, otherwise you're going to melt the chocolate and then they'll be sliding off one another. I will let you learn these things the hard way.
Yeah, you do your thing and I'll let my tray cool down.
Okay. Well, I've taken the dough out of my bowl. So you can see it's incorporated that fruit really, really well. You can see how gorgeous, glossy. However, it's quite a sticky dough. You've also seen my trusty little shower caps, which you can get from, I got these from IGA. They sell them in like a 10-pack. By all means, if you're off to the hotels, keep the shower caps for your dough. You can use some cling film on that as well. So that needs about 45 minutes to proof the first time. I've glazed these now. How good do they look? I reckon I could give Mr. Baker's Delight a run for his money. What do you reckon, guys?
Absolutely.
I'm going to pull one out. It's so hot though. But I want to do this because, you know, proofs in the show.
I need to come and get some of those and take them to work.
So they're gorgeous and fluffy, and they're going to stay that way for days and days and days. And obviously to do that, you allow this to cool down really, really well, and then seal them in wherever you're putting them to still keep them obviously airtight. A bit like what they're doing, you know, whether they're popping them in the plastic bag. We've got other ways obviously to do that at home. But I'm so delighted. Look how gorgeous they are. Now, that mixture, by the way, that you make for the crosses, I think what makes way too much. I think it's probably a quantity thing for your mixing bowl. So you can do it by hand, like if you want to carve that mixture, or if you're going to pump out, 4 trays of hot cross buns to impress all your friends. I think you'll be able to get that out of literally one batch of the. It's literally just flour, pinch of salt, olive oil, and water. So really, really easy. Who's coming over? I'm going to make some butter now. I actually didn't bring all the ingredients out, but basically I make cinnamon honey butter. So I take the butter out, I whip it up to a really soft, fluffy consistency. I add honey to that and cinnamon, and it's really based on taste. I never measure it. I basically based it on taste. So Mum and I are going to snack on a few of these, I think, before.
That's amazing. Vicky's asking, could you use this as a base for sureki?
Yes, you can. So obviously this has got the same ingredients, obviously, the spices. Yes, you can change it to mahlepi masticha. This recipe would work. So I did do the tongue chong. Sorry, I got it. Tongue chong. I did the tongue chong tsurekia last year. So, Vicky, I can actually point you to the recipe that I used. I used a recipe off YouTube, which was fantastic. They had a little bit too much mastic in it, but exactly the same. And that's why I was so excited to try it with the hot cross buns this year, because it's a little bit disappointing when you make them and the next day they're really stale. Not that you throw them out, you probably chuck them in a toaster and toast them up and put some butter on them, but these stay beautiful and fluffy. Now, I actually looked at the recipe. It says to cook them at 220 degrees. I promise you they will turn black at 220. It's way too hot. So these have been done at 180 for 20 minutes. They're still lovely and moist inside. So I think that is going to work. So no problem. Obviously, it depends on your oven. If your oven runs a little bit hot. Mine's pretty accurate at the 180. They smell delicious.
Oh, wish we had smell-a-thon.
So we wish. That'll be the next version of Zoom.
Vicky wants to come over.
Come over.
Oh, stop it, they smell so good. Okay, so I actually just put my one of the size of my eggs on there, and look, it's all joined up together. So I've got my Smartie things in there. I don't know what, I just think of them as Smarties. This has got actually a flat side, the mold, and then that one's the other. So I think that's pretty good. You could do that up pretty nicely for Easter. One thing I learned actually through researching a bit about chocolate is you've got to be really careful how you store it. So a lot of people, put it in their fridge, and chocolate has to just drop. It can only drop by 10 degrees at a time. So again, this is in the notes I'm going to send out to you, but it does say if you want to store it in your fridge, you've got to drop it in, and it's funny because the book, I'll show you the book. This is obviously written by someone from the UK, because she talks about putting your chocolate in a north-facing room to cool down. And I'm going, no, not in Australia, but to put in a south-facing room to cool down. And they're saying, if you can put it into air conditioning, or if you've got a wine fridge. I mean, the ideal is in a dehumidified fridge. Well, not many of us have those, but basically you have to drop it by 10 degrees, and then so it's 10 degrees above your normal fridge, and then you can, after it's got to that level, you can put it into the fridge to store as well. So yeah, that was just an interesting little thing I had no idea about, because, and when you pull it out, just make sure you let it have a little bit of time to come to room temperature. Otherwise, I don't know if you've ever seen chocolate that's got a bit of condensation on it. If it's going from super cold to warm, it will get that condensation on it. Irene, we have a question. How many times did you prove the bun dough?
Oh, great question. You coming back to this? Are you? Yep, great. I'm actually about to do a taste test, so we'll wait. So I did this tonight, so I did a 2-time test, but having said that, once this proves the first time, I'm putting it to bed. So exactly what I prefer to do. Having said that, this dough is much easier to work with. So once it proves, it actually rolled on the mat really easily. So I had no problem going from the first proof, rolling them into little balls and getting them into the tray. So I had no problem with the two. And I think because of the trick with the Tangzhong method is that they're not going to dry out. So that's one of the reasons we do the three times without the Tangzhong method, is purely because you want it to extend that shelf life, and the 3 times does that. Having said that, I don't want to bake these tonight. So once this rises the first time, it's going in. I'm going to knock out the air into the fridge. It'll proof overnight. And then I'm going to bake them in the morning so they can have them nice and hot in the office. The things we do for our colleagues, so they can enjoy them tomorrow with, still warm and with some beautiful fresh honey cinnamon butter.
Wonderful. We better go back to Pearl and have a look at her eggs.
I was in a great hurry to take it out. I didn't allow it to dry, but this is what I got with that green one. See?
Oh, yeah. Cool.
But you have to allow it to dry, because if it's wet, then all those marks of yours go off. So that's what happened to mine.
I think that they've all gone onto your fingers.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest wear gloves, please.
Gloves, yes. Definitely. Yeah. No, but the earlier one, what I did was I allowed it to dry completely, and then I opened it. So there was no color running anywhere. But here I was in a hurry to open it out now to show it to you all. And that's why all this. But I'm quite happy, because I'm not an artistic person, but see how nice they look.
That's fantastic. I love that one. So what did you do for that one? I think I had chocolate going hard in my machine. But I know about the net one, but the pink one, how did you get that shape?
Yeah, I used that same wire mesh of the avocado one, and I put it in the pink color, red food color.
Wow. Yeah,
this food color.
Yeah,
and this is onion peel. This is the onion peel one.
That's amazing. And I did notice in one of those collections when I was looking earlier, they use matcha powder for green.
Oh, okay. You can use turmeric. You can use beetroot. Will give you the same pink color.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's fantastic. Thank you, Pearl.
To try. Yeah, it's nice to try with the kids actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, Bert, come back to me. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Has anyone got any more questions?
Can I just add one thing before we go?
Go for it.
So I've obviously followed the recipe for the Firmix. Now, because it contains the fruit, the recipe only calls for 50 grams of sugar. Because I wasn't putting fruit in these, I've increased it to 80. But I still think it needs a little bit more. So I would double the sugar if you're going to leave them completely fruit-free, because they're just not sweet enough. It's more bread than cross bun, I guess. Whereas you don't need to do that with the fruit, because it obviously adds a fair bit of sweetness from the sultanas. But I think this needs it. My mum won't mind, because she'll toast it and do whatever she wants to it, and she'll probably add some sugar on top, I guess. But if you're going to make these to serve, I would definitely increase it from 50 to 100.
Fabulous. Thanks, Irene. Thank you so much again for all your amazing knowledge. Very generous in sharing with everybody all the time. It's great. Thank you. Happy Easter, Joanna, to you too. We're going to be planning what else we're going to do for you guys. So let us know. Pop in the chat. Is there anything particular you guys want to see? All right. Just pop it in now before you go. Or you can respond when I send out the email with all the bits and pieces in it. If there's anything you can think of that comes to you in the middle of the night when you wake up, or you start dreaming about something to do with Thermomix, then let us know, and we would absolutely love to help. And remember about that second bowl and blade set. Okay, it's a really, really good deal. Really good way to get someone, well, even if no one of your friends purchases that a cooking experience, you know what, that seed is always planted, and you can still get discount off a second bowl and blade set. You can get one for $365, I think it is, instead of 265 instead of 375. And if one of your friends decides to purchase at your cooking experience or within 7 days, then you get one for $110. So it's a really, really good deal. And there are so many ways you can use it. Use a second bowl. Thank you so much for coming along. As always, we've loved having you with us, and appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, guys. We will send out the notes as well.
We will, absolutely.
On your way.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.